Hey Nour, thank you so much for joining us. Before we jump into any of the technical details, why don't you give us a quick introduction about yourself?
Hi, Ash. Thank you. Yes, I'm Nour, a senior data scientist in Toyota R&D. I have spent my last 5 years working on forklift telemetry, first on iSight microservices in .NET, and now on data pipelines and dashboards from Azure IoT Hub that support uptime and operations. And that experience led directly to the Snowflake migration we will talk about.
That's great. Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about all of your experience working with the Spark clusters. And just to level set for everyone, today we're going to walk through how your team was managing the telemetry data and Spark cluster before, what changed architecturally, and what did you learn from simplifying that system, improving your speeds, and reducing the cost, and all the good things. So let's start with the scenario or the issue that you had to begin with. I know we were talking about this earlier, and one thing that really stuck me was uh, the Spark babysitting. That's a term that you used. So, looking at this, your current state of the system that was there, why don't you walk us through how your environment looked like? Did the issues come from?
Sure. If you look at this diagram, you can see how spread out everything was. So our telemetry data was actually split across Azure Blob storage, Databricks, and Snowflake. We exported data from Snowflake, landed it as CSV snapshots in Azure Blob storage, and then read them into Spark on Databricks to do all the cleaning, filtering, and deduplication. So every step crossed a different system boundary, which meant multiple platforms to monitor, secure, and debug. And when something went wrong, it was a bit hard to tell, like if the issue was in storage, in Spark cluster, orchestration, or maybe on the permissions. So a lot of our time went into just keeping these pipelines running instead of focusing on more analysis or a new use cases. Um, and that's what led to that feeling of having to babysit Spark.
Interesting. And refactoring the code or making any changes wasn't really an option for you?
Exactly. By that point, we had a lot of existing Spark code and notebooks that were already business critical. So rewriting or refactoring all of that just to change the architecture would have been a huge, risky, and time consuming project. So we need a way to keep our Spark code and developers' habits, but reduce the Spark babysitting and the platform overhead.
Got it. Okay, that's interesting. So let's look at what changed. If I compare those two diagrams from the quick overview, it seems like the system is definitely simpler. But from your perspective, what made this approach viable as compared to the earlier options that you had?
Yeah, actually, with the Snowpark Connect, we could run our existing Spark workload directly on Snowflake instead of managing separate Spark clusters. The Spark API stayed the same, so data frames, UDFs behaved exactly as before, and the migration efforts were minimal, which made it feasible to consolidate this workload onto Snowflake.
Got it. So you're still keeping your same Spark programming language and all your pipelines are the same, just the execution engine becomes Snowflake.
Yeah, exactly. Architecturally, the main shift is where execution happens. Our Spark notebook now execute on Snowflake Elastic Compute right next to where the data lives instead of on separate Spark clusters. Orchestration, security, and monitoring are all handled inside Snowflake. So we went from coordinating multiple tools to managing a single governance workflow.
Got it. That sounds pretty cool. And one quick thing we don't talk about a lot during these processes is how your experience was collaborating. So how important was that working with engineers at Snowflake?
Yeah, actually, it was very important. Snowflake engineers worked closely with our team throughout the migration. When we had technical blockers, they were usually resolved in hours instead of weeks. And that level of support let us move quickly without introducing extra risk into our business critical pipelines.
That's great. Yeah, that's very exciting to know. And let's talk about scale. Like, what was the impact of all of this? It sounds very cool in theory, but Uh, how big was the workload? How did you approach the migration? What were the results?
Yeah, actually, we were definitely not talking about a small proof of concept. In total, we migrate about 23 terabyte of telemetry data and approximately 39 Spark jobs, most of them notebooks. And to de-risk the cutover, we run the Databricks pipelines and then use Snowflake pipelines side by side for a period of time. And then we compared the output, made sure the logic matched, and only then switched production over. And by the time we cut over, we were confident it was the same workload, just running on different engine.
Oh, got it. So everything was the logic was the same. It's just that your performance was improved. So speaking of performance, how did that look like?
Yeah, actually, for one of our core production pipelines, the end-to-end runtime on Databricks was about 9.5 minutes. When we run the same logic on the same data in Snowflake using Snowpark Connect, we run the same logic again, and it finished in about 3 minutes. So for the pipeline, we saw roughly a three-time performance improvement without changing the code. And as part of the migration, Power BI now refreshes directly from a single governance Snowflake source instead of like stitching together data from multiple systems.
Wow, this is great, insane improvement. And
Yeah,
did
exactly.
you and did you notice any change beyond just the runtime speed improvement?
Yes, quite few. Actually, first we had fewer system to manage, no separate Spark cluster to tune and babysit. That meant much less manual DevOps and cluster management. Second, governance becomes simpler. Instead of fragmented ACLs across different tools, we could use Snowflake unified governance model. Like all of that added up to lower operational overhead and like a reduced total cost of ownership.
Wow, that's great. So, from the key takeaways perspective, if there's something that you would like to share with other data teams which are listening to this call, from your experience, what would that be?
Yeah, actually, for me, the main point is that you don't have to choose between Spark and simplicity. If you have already invested in Spark, you can keep that programming model and still improve how it runs by moving execution onto Snowflake, closer to the data. And also, like every step you take to reduce architectural or like and operational complexity has a big impact on your team's velocity and your overall costs. And one more thing I would add, having close collaboration with the Snowflake team during the migration really helped us move fast without like taking on extra risk.
Wow, yeah, that's a great place to end. Thank you, Nour, for walking us through the real journey and not just the outcome, but also how you got there. This has been really great talking to you.
Thank you for having me. It was really great to share the full story, not just the end result.